All right, let's get started. So here's a bounding box that I built from a measurement that I took of the actual item. And you can see I've got my centimeter measurements here on the side. And I just wanted to make sure that I had the photogrammetry data scaled near, perfect. It's maybe a little bit off, but then I'm going to go ahead and put these in layers so that I can have them as a template so that I can't select them. You can see if you click on the layers and change that to T, you can't select it. Unless you go into the outliner. You can select on the outliner or you can turn it off a template. I'm just going to make a cylinder here, rotate it 90 degrees by holding J, and then I'm going to go ahead and get into place and start scaling it. I'm only going to scale it on it's the X and the Y. I'm sorry, the Z and the Y here. So yeah, I'm scaling on the Z and the Y, trying to get it kind of centered. Make sure that it goes just a tiny bit outside of the mesh because I know when I smooth it, it'll shrink in size just a little bit. Not much, just a little. And so I'm just getting it perfectly aligned. And then I need to go ahead and make sure that it's the right size in the other direction. I could have always worked that out later with like an extrusion, but I like to basically block out first and make sure everything's blocked out correctly so I know where I'm going. So, okay. So then we're just going to go ahead and take the verts here, move it to kind of that center line, and that'll work for that. And then I'm going to go ahead and clone it. Now I'm going to change my pivot here and put my pivot to like the inner point right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and just snap that to my other object. And I was having a hard time doing it for some reason. Like I couldn't, it kept like jumping funny. And there we go. Finally got it. This is going to be my other side. And so I didn't know what to call it. So I just call it other side. And I'm going to go ahead and just make a few adjustments on this, but I'm going to come back to this later. This is not what I'm working on immediately. So other side layer, so I can hide it because you really need to stay organized. Like if you get into complex modeling, it's like you got to be able to hide stuff and show stuff, and you don't want to be fighting it. It takes too long. I just want to show like here's my drawing, so I just take a quick look at it. I'll move it off to the side. I actually don't really look at it except for one time, but it's just nice to have there in case like you get stuck and you look at like, oh, what was I thinking earlier? You don't have to do the drawing, but it's one of those things where it's like it can help you if you're trying to visualize something. So here we're doing the same thing, just kind of getting this aligned. I'm only scaling on the Z and the Y, and then just gonna get these so they line up. So I'm gonna align to the end vert there, and then I'm gonna snap to the end vert on the other cylinder. So then that way those are perfectly aligned. You don't have to just definitely do that, but it's just for me, I'm kind of particular. Okay, so now I'm just going to take these inner edges here. So I just deleted the faces. I'm going to take the inner edges and just bridge them. So now we basically, it's still kind of like a cylinder. It's almost like you stretch the cylinder out. You have like one piece in between. So now I can just start moving around some of these extra points that aren't really, they're not contributing to the shape, but I can move them out to the edges of the shape. And here I'm going to try to decide like, okay, I can probably just do this bevel with the pieces that I already have here. And so I was just trying to figure out which ones I want to use. And so now I'm just snapping them to be aligned with the other bottom pieces. And then here I'm just going to basically drag this down and drag it over a little bit. And so here we have our 3 points to that curve right there, which should be fine. That should be enough. We don't really need 5 points like we did in the drawing. So here I'm going to go ahead and just like pull this down, get it straightened out because I want to extrude out the front face. So that way, we can get that one little kind of lip that comes out right there. And, yeah, we don't want to mess with that. So I was just showing like the curvature. You don't want to mess with any of that balance. Like you can mess with the flat side, but you don't want to mess with the spacing on the curved side, because if you mess with those segment spacing, then they're going to look pinched. So now I'm just going to go ahead and just use the extrude tool and extrude this out a little bit. And basically now we have the overall shape that we need. It's not, the topology is not correct yet, but the overall shape is blocked out. So that's good. So now we can start working on the topology. And one of the things we could do is to fence inside here, you basically could just grab all the inner faces and you could just do an offset in. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of most of the edges, although I'm going to keep one edge going up to the top mid so it doesn't get wonky. Sometimes if you try to remove edges, and you don't leave like one edge in there, it gets weird. So it's better just to like leave one edge in like that. Okay, so now I've got all these, just 3 faces basically, but they're huge n-gons. Well, most of them are. And then we're just going to offset in at 0.4. And I'm going to take note of that number because I'm going to use that again on the other side. Just make sure I know that my offset's exactly the same. So this point right here, I want to terminate. So you can see right here in my drawing how it terminates out. So that's the only part here that I really need to change. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a cut out to the outside there and do a cut to there. And then I just need to delete that angled edge that's in between the hypotenuse, if you will. So in this, my cut tool was acting wonky here for some reason. Like I couldn't get it to work right, and I thought Maya was gonna crash. So I saved my file really quick. I was like, oh crap. So anyway, it didn't crash, and I did eventually get it to work, but it took a sec. So now here I don't need this inner part here because I'm going to like extrude out, and I'm just going to leave the inside there because that gives me an object to like extrude to. I know exactly where I'm going to be. So here now I can just basically start treating this like capping a hole. If you think about it, you're going to try to do it like as an all quads cap. And it's a little bit more complicated because there's some extra things in here, but not too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that one midline in there that gets rid of the n-gon. And then if I put a cut here, then I can just string that across the other side, and same thing over there. And then this actually is a pretty easy piece to figure out. So just put a midline in there. I'll go ahead and that's kind of like a termination edge in a sense. Like if you work an edge from the outside to a flat part, you kind of consider that like terminating because it's we're going to be extruding anyway. And here I can do the same thing as like I can just basically bring that edge all the way out, and then I'm just going to take these and sort of make them straight with each other. Even though I'm going to average these later, I just wanted to stay kind of like straight and not crooked. You don't really have to do that, just you can average them later. So anyway, so now I've got that. I'm just going to hit 3 and check it and see that everything looks okay. It seems like everything's working fine. And so here I'm trying to extrude it, and like I kind of like, I haven't modeled in Maya, and like I started using Blender a lot, and I was trying to learn Blender. But for my classes, I need to teach in Maya. So I was like, why doesn't it make a back face? And like, I could have sworn that it makes a back face. And then I was like, upset that it wasn't like capping it. I know in Houdini it does, and I think you can do it in Blender, but, I was sort of like, wait, it doesn't make a face. So what I ended up having to do was like, I undid the extrude, and then I just go and move the whole face back, and then extrude it forward because extrude it like that basically. But I moved it back when I did it. I was trying to figure out a way to like have it cap the thing and make an enclosed face, but I'm gonna have to look into that because I could have sworn Maya did that, but it seems like it's not doing it now. So anyway, so here I'm just gonna extrude out like so, and then I'm just gonna take that back face that was my guide and delete that because I don't need that anymore. So now I've got that shape basically figured out. I just need to put in some holding edges. So like I need the one holding edge, and I'm going to go ahead and go to wireframe because I'm going to look at the slope here, and depending on how tight you need that bevel is how close you're going to put that edge in there. So if you want it like to be looser, softer, kind of like it is, then you're going to have that bevel or that edge, holding edge, a little bit further away. So what I do is I just put a holding edge where I think it might need to go, and then I can move it accordingly. So I'm just kind of, like looking at that roundness right there that's on the edge, and then I'm going to just drag down and just put a slice all the way through. And then I'll go ahead and hit 3 on my keyboard and check it and just see how it looks. And it's a good idea to go into the wireframe to look and see how much it's matching. Now I realize here that it seems like the problem is more of like my faces are out too far. So I do try to move this edge and like slide it around and see if that makes it better. But that actually is not really doing what I want. So what I did is I just take the vertices here and I move that in a little bit. I'm not worried about it being super, super precise because even if I bake my normals from the high poly, you actually want like the low poly to sort of just envelop the outside, like it should be just outside of the high poly, or you're going to have to do like a push inside of your baking program. Either one like can work, but I usually like try to build it so it's like just enveloping the high poly. Okay, so now this looks good. I'm happy with it. I'm just checking it. I'm just making sure that everything is blending fine, looks nice. And, make sure we're getting all quad topology, everything's balanced. I'm going to go ahead and then just grab the inner vertices and make sure you don't grab anything on the fencing or on the outside. So I'm just grabbing everything but the fencing, and then I'm just going to go average verts. And you can see now it starts balancing the mesh out. I just hit G a few times, which is to repeat the last tool. And so now I've got this nice balanced mesh. I could bevel these corners. So I was looking at the corners saying, well, I could like try to pull them in a little bit so they're more beveled like the actual mesh. But then I went ahead and actually did the smooth and looked at it, and it was fine. Actually, I liked it better before I went ahead and did the adjustments. So I went ahead and undid my adjustments. And then here I'm just looking at this and seeing how close this thing matches up. So I went ahead and just basically moved that in just a little bit. And I like the results a little bit better because it was turning at the right spot as it compares to the other mesh, the high poly mesh. Okay, so I'm going to put this in a layer so I can hide it. That's really important. So this way I can start working on the other side. Okay, so let's look at the other side here. So we're just going to get into orthographic, and we're going to move points around. So I'm just going to scale them and flatten them out. And then I'm going to move these out so they're kind of straight. And going along with the mesh, I'm just snapping it with the verts snap. And here, there's like a little weird kink in this thing. So we're going to take a look at that. And we need to make sure that we have some holding points to make sure that kink is maintains, So I'm trying to move this around just to see what I think, but ultimately I didn't really want to mess with the actual curvature of the rounded part. So I basically just pulled the one part down to hold that edge, and then I'm going to add something in later. So now I'm just moving these points over so that they basically, make this bevel that goes around this basically kind of soft bevel, and just lining them up. And I'm not really snapping them. I'm just sort of looking at them, just kind of eyeballing them, making sure that they line up good. All right, so now we have some weird topology. I'm going to go ahead and cut the middle, but I actually had some weird thing going on where the cut tool, again, this cut tool has been kind of wonky. It just wouldn't seem to grab the center vert for some reason, so I went and cut from the top, and then I tried to catch the center vert again, and it says in the component mode that it's on verts, but it keeps trying to select other like faces and stuff like that, and try to get it, and then it just wouldn't work, and then it wouldn't complete the tool. So basically I just kept trying until I got it right. I probably could have just used the connect tool, which would have in this case been faster this time, but normally it's the cut tool is faster. So it says I have 11 points there, so I don't know what's going on, so I'm going to merge them all into one. They must have cut through a bunch of different edges. So like I said, the cut tool is acting weird. So I'm just going to get rid of all the edges and then do an offset in at 0.4 like I did before. And so now I know I'll have that all aligned. This one's pretty easy to lay out the topology for, maybe a little bit easier than the other one because there's not so much extrusions and stuff like that. I'm trying to align this correctly because it looked like it was kind of crooked based on the screen space. And then I'm just doing this like a capped hole here. Basically cutting across and then cutting to the next one. I got to figure out how to hold that kink in there. But I know I'm going to like basically put some extra edges in here so I have somewhere to tie it into. And so then I'm going to actually, I want to basically run an edge down the middle here and just leave a triangle at the bottom, which I will fix later. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm looking at the topology here, and I realize that I'm making n-gons. So I'll fix that in a minute. But I'm going to just basically redirect here. So there you go. Now we got a nice poly loop going around. And then here, I'm just going to put a cut here and a cut here. And then I'm just going to use the target weld tool to target weld one side to the other side. So something, yeah, so like that. It's it'll leave everything all quads, but it's kind of unbalanced, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of scale those out a little bit, and then do the same thing with these up here so they're a little bit more scaled in a even fashion. Then I'm just putting another strike through there, if you will, or edge through there, because I wanted it to be more balanced. And now I'm realizing there's for some reason I can't put an edge loop in there, so I'm going and using my merge tool, and I'm going to turn the threshold up and see if I can get it a little bit higher and get rid of whatever edges were like duplicated in there. I'm not sure what was going on. So it starts working now, so it seems fine. Here I'm just going to basically make a triangle, and then I'm going to tie one more edge through to the outside like so that actually becomes a quad. And that's a perfect little 3-point curve to hold that little edge right there, because I needed something, otherwise it was going to be too soft. And now I'm just going to grab all of the interior verts that aren't touching the fencing, except for those two top ones, and I'm going to just go ahead and average those and see how they look. If I average them out, do they look better? So yeah, I kind of like that. It looks nice and balanced. And that one, I just like to pull out a little tiny bit, so I know, I don't know why I do that. It's like, I just want it to look like a quad. And that's pretty much it. Just checking it out. And I got to run one more edge around the outside, and then smooth it and just make sure it's matching the mesh, the underneath reference mesh. So I'll turn on the wireframe for that, get the mesh out, and then it's much easier to tell when you just look at the wireframe. Look at that, it's actually right on the money. So that's pretty good. In the next step, we'll connect these other pieces together, these two pieces that we just made, and we'll basically figure out the topology for the rest of it. All right, guys, take care, bye.